YouTube Live. I'm your host, Kevin McPherson. Good morning. Good Monday morning. We typically go on when we go on earlier than this. This is where we land today, just before 7 o'clock Central Time. It is the beginning of week one. We had week zero in college football over the weekend. I watched the game overseas, Iowa State, Kansas State. Good football game. So they're very, you had football, you had the U.S. Open, a lot of good sports. This time of year, I'm anxious. I'm ready for college football. I'm certainly ready for college basketball. That's what we talk about here. Arkansas Razorbacks men's basketball. But you got to be excited as a Hog fan that you got your football Hogs starting the season in earnest at home on Saturday in a game it should win. Quite frankly, another SWAC opponent, Alabama A&M last year was in state. UAPB. I covered that game here in War Memorial Stadium in the 501. Bobby Petrino unveiled his first offense as Arkansas's offensive coordinator in title. I think they scored on every possession, didn't turn the ball over. I don't think they forced any turnovers either, but I think it was a 70-0 deal. And it's you're hoping for something like that. I'm have increased my HogvilleNET YouTube live coverage of the football Hogs. I've already had a couple of segments today. We're going to do the last 15 minutes talking about this team just a little bit as we're not really looking ahead in terms of scouting, and we'll have a pregame show later in the week, but we're not going to scout the other opponent. This is all about right now what Arkansas can do to stay healthy. And then you hope they're clicking on all cylinders. Everybody gets to play, that kind of thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about that toward the end, but at the beginning, we're going to do what the assignment is for us. Just about every time we come on, it's strictly basketball. There's plenty to talk about today, including we're going to pick back up with what we started with Saturday. We were talking about the fact that Calipari put out those photos, and we saw just how massive, how tall, how long, not only as a team, but how the two big men that came from overseas that finally made it. Once you see them in photos, it takes it to another level, right? You went from a big team, good size positionally, athletic team, plenty of length, all that stuff, but you went from being that to just being supersized. I mean, you are now arguably the biggest team in college basketball. I've had several people ask me, who's bigger? I don't know. You're in the conversation now. And you've got a veteran frontline trio, guys we knew they're going to count on in the top rotation, but now you've got some other things some new toys that have been added that catch the eye. But when we talked about the fact that Samito's already, had several wow moments inside the Performance Center. And I started talking about how, when you're as long as he is, 7'5" wingspan is what I've reported before based on other reports. But I've got a source that told me a while back, and we mentioned it on here at the time, they think he's got more like a 7'8" wingspan. And that might be true after seeing those photos, especially the wingspan photo. Obviously, there was one of those of the two that Calipari dropped. And I really think that when you start talking about how quick he is and light off his feet, the fact that he can handle the ball a little bit, shoot the ball from the perimeter some, it doesn't surprise me at all that there were some wow moments once he stepped on the court inside the Performance Center. Not a surprise at all. And so those are some of the things we discussed when we were on Saturday. Elmer Zavich, I mentioned the tree trunk legs, is how he's, solid from head to toe and also a 7-footer. Now, once we were on, I think at the time I had just checked the official roster on the Razorbacks website. They had not updated that roster yet to add those two players. They hadn't been on there at all. In fact, until they got on the campus, they still weren't immediately on there. Well, once we were off the show Saturday, a bit later in the day, I checked again, and sure enough, it had been updated. They had been added. So let's go through that real quick. I put some tweets out to talk about that very thing once I saw it. Number 99 is what we're going to have Paulo Samito decked out in. He's wearing that number 99. Someone's asked me if Arkansas is still recruiting Jacob Lanier, and if so, or if not, so I'll get into recruiting here in a little bit. But we will talk recruiting as well before we get to football Hogs. But right now, we're talking about Samito at number 99. I've not seen that at Arkansas ever. That'll be a first. He's they've had more than a handful of 7-footers come through the program historically. And then we've had some 6'11" guys where back in the day they used to say if you're 6'11", you're a 7-footer. And back in the day, if you were listed at 6'11" in college, when you went to the NBA, you immediately became a 7-footer. That was the case with Joe Klein. He went from 6'11" to 7 feet. Now they might have reversed in thinking on that at some point, but that's how it used to work. But Arkansas, the way I look at it, they brought in 2 7-footers, 2 footers, as the kids like to say. But Samito wearing number 99, it got me thinking of maybe some nicknames you could throw in there. I came up with 2 or 3. I don't know if they're corny or not. Agent 99 was one. Some longer phrase things like Paulo like it's 1999, a play on Prince's Party like it's 1999. If you have to explain it, it might not be all that catchy. 99 Paulos and the big ain't one or something like that. You know what that's referencing. But either way, it's kind of cool to see not only his height, size, length, all that crazy stuff. We talked about how it just looked in the picture, how he dwarfed guys that are 6'10", 6'11", ranging from 230 to 240 in weight, just made them look, less imposing. And then you see the number 99 on the jersey. Once that splashes, that's going to be interesting. And then Jovic, who they listed now. Okay, so Samito, 7'1", 225 on the roster. They don't list wingspans. They've got him listed as a forward. Then you've got Jovic, also listed as a forward, but they've got him at 6'11". So if you looked at his professional profiles in Europe, I saw 6'11", I saw 7 feet, different takes there, but 6'11's what the official roster has him at. He'll wear jersey number 15, 265 pounds. Now that was his previously reported weight. That doesn't surprise me a bit looking at the photo. And the only thing I can think of as a nickname for him that just comes to me, and this is paying homage to a late great one who just passed, is Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan is how I want to refer to Elmer Jovic. Now, Hulk Hogan, rest in peace. But when you look at this body, he is a hulking figure. He's huge. Again, I mentioned it on Saturday. He's a mountain of a man. I mean, dude's just big. And we talked about, just being a guy you put in and it's kind of a wrecking ball. Pick up fouls, lean on folks, move bodies around in the paint. They used to use, that's how Kamani Johnson was used. And now Kamani Johnson was a veteran guy. By the time he was a Razorback, he was a transfer. He'd played college basketball for a while. Different kind of player, but at the same time, if your idea is to get physical, Jovic is a guy that could do that from day one. And you might want to send a message in more way than one. And so, although we've talked about these guys being on the periphery of a true two-deep rotation for now, Samito, we've said, has the better shot at seeing playing time in terms of maybe some kind of role that matters. Either way, whether they're long-term development guys, which is going to be really more of what, when we think about bringing them in, what that's really going to be about. I mean, you got 3 veteran guys again that know how to play college basketball, have their own special set of talents. And it's going to be hard to crack that group in terms of game to game, where you look on the court and there's a guy that's has a big impact and big role. It's going to be hard for either one to do that. Some advantage Samito there if anybody's to do it. That doesn't mean they won't play, and it doesn't mean Samito is not sitting there on the bench looking for a blowout to get in the game. I mean, maybe it is that, maybe not. Some other guys, we know that's how it's been. It was last year, even guys that were technically on athletic scholarship. So that's what are we going to get? We don't know. We're just getting ramped up. Now, think about it. We had mentioned last week, I think, that the staff had told me that they're going to spend most of the first week, which was last week, strength and conditioning, most in terms of what they can, the NCAA mandates they can do. On-court instruction, that's still limited. And so they were going to kind of start easing into that or ramping up into that starting this week. So if that's true, then there's probably going to be more on-court stuff. Then you just wonder, is the university going to put out, please let them put out some practice clips, something that we can sink our teeth into, something with hair and fangs and that we can talk about. The photos are great, man. The photos were a great start. Thank you, John Calipari. You are the hog father for a reason. And if it's going to happen, it's going to come through you. I get it. Get them out there. If you want to put the videos out for practice, you do it. Whoever it is, get them out there. We hope for that. And then we hope that they keep their word. Calipari, when he says he's going to invite the media back in September, that's what I've got I'm paying attention to. Do I get to go back in there? Because if they're going to allow video to roll from the media, I'm going to be doing that and getting highlights out to the people, you good people who deserve it. All right, so we got Samito, we got Javich, that we got them now. They're here. They were like a concept, right? They committed back in mid-June. When are they coming? They're not here yet. What's going on? Is there a holdup? All that stuff, and you're like, well, yeah, until they show up, are they real? Oh, they're real. Unless that's AI generated, and I don't think it is. I don't think Calipari's putting out artificial intelligence on his Twitter feed that's got, between 1.5 and 2 million followers. I don't think he's doing that to the people. I don't think he's going to do that to the fans. They're real. They're there. And we're already getting reports back inside there about Samito. Remember, think about just some of the things that when you anticipate the shiny new toy and you have to wait on it, it just builds even more in your mind what the possibilities are when you don't have a concept of it like you do when you went through spring and summer and you kind of get used to guys being there. We didn't get a whole lot of highlights, but we heard stuff, we had reports, and you're still excited, but after a while, the shiny new toy, you want to unwrap that gift and see it. So that's where we're at. It's like Christmas again. And so it was fun talking about this stuff on Saturday. It's great now that they've got jersey numbers assigned. I'm still getting a kick out of Agent 99 and that Samito jersey's going to that'll sell like hotcakes when it hits the open market, won't it? There's already probably some t-shirt places already getting stuff off the presses and getting them online, eBay or something. All right, let's go through some important dates. We were talking about practice and how it's going to be limited for a while, and that'll continue to be that way. September 22nd, that's when full practice, that's when they ramp up. That's the date. So if you're keeping an eye on things, that's about a month away. I want to talk about things when we get inside that 30-day window, just to be thinking about it, important dates up ahead. Some other things that we've got our eyes on. When are we going to see the non-conference schedule, the full non-conference schedule? Saturday, we were able to talk about the fact that road game against Michigan State that we knew about, that Arkansas is going to play that on November 8th, thanks to the reporting of CBS Sports' Matt Norlander during a podcast last week with Gary Parrish. And so we had that date, and we mentioned that's the weekend to cap the first week of the regular season. You start off November 3rd at home against Southern. A few days later, you're on the road against Michigan State, the Big Ten, defending Big Ten champion, an Elite Eight team, a team that brings back a good portion of its roster, similarly to how Arkansas did. And so you're thinking, okay, this is kind of like last year. You started at home with Lipscomb, a bye win, and then you're away from home. You weren't on the road, but you're away from home in Dallas. So it wasn't a true road game, but you're on the road to a team playing closer to its campus in Baylor. And so you already had you got tested early. It's going to happen again. We know a lot of those marquee matchups happen beginning with Duke in late November, Thanksgiving Day, and then it just continues to roll through December. Here's a test of your 5 big games. Here's one not only in November, the only one that's early in your non-conference slate. So, we talked about that, but we're waiting for the rest of the schedule. We now know you can have as many as 31 games. Arkansas needs a multi-team event, which has not been announced yet who those opponents would be. You need at least 2 opponents to get to 31 games. And we know of 26. We know all 18 SEC matchups, where those games are being played, and what dates. We've gone through the dates of the marquee matchups and some of the other teams like Southern, I just mentioned, UCA on November 11th, Queens at Bud Walton Arena also on December 16th, and then the other games, obviously, again, Duke, November 27th, Louisville on the ACC SEC Challenge, the 3rd annual event there, December 3rd at Bud Walton Arena. Then it's December 13th against Texas Tech in Dallas. You played Baylor there last year in early November. Now you're about mid-December and you're getting Texas Tech there and on a neutral site, another Texas team and a neutral site in Texas. And then you've got Houston, as we know, a national runner-up last year. And really, arguably now, it's surpassed Kansas as the strength of the Big 12. It's still a really good league. There are other teams at the top up there. Iowa State, you got other teams outside of Kansas that have been good and will be good. Baylor's been one of those. Not as much lately at quite that level. But Houston, December 20th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So we've got 5 games we don't know about. We know about 26. We know 8 non-con, 18 SEC, that's 26. 31 minus 26 is 5. Or is there going to be another high major opponent in there? We've talked about the Gonzaga thing. It seems like it was on maybe for an exhibition, and then you start home and away the next 2 years. Start at maybe an exhibition in Fayetteville this year, or a neutral site game this year, and home and away. So a 3-year deal. So that kind of went lukewarm for this year, or even maybe not, maybe cold, a little cool. But Norlander in that segment last week that we talked about brought it back up with Gonzaga. So I don't know if there's something stirring there again for this year. Maybe, maybe not. I know Arkansas is still trying to finalize the schedule, and here we are nearly in September. Then you'll roll. When we mentioned some of the dates there, you start full practice the 22nd. We know that the Memphis exhibition game on the road, we're told, is October 28th. That's a Tuesday, and that likely will have some kind of television designation. All right, real quick, some other dates as it pertains to recruiting, as we're going to talk a little bit of recruiting. August 21st to September 2nd. So we knew that the last day of the dead period was August 20th. We talked about it a lot. That was a few days ago, midweek last week. So August 21st through September 2nd is a quiet period. Players can come onto campus. I mentioned after talking with the staff that it's not likely Arkansas is going to have visitors in this little stretch of time in this quiet period. Not to say they can't change on that and something come up and they said, yeah, we need to do it. Again, this weekend's home football game would be an opportunity to bring in a recruit and let them see that atmosphere. So we'll see if something shifts or changes. For now, that's the talking point. But once you get to September 3rd, recruiting opens back up. The open recruiting period, according to the NCAA, runs September 3rd. I've mentioned that date. But what I haven't told you is, just like every year, it runs through the spring with just very few exceptions of a few days here and there, a few pockets of dead days where you can't go on campus, players can't, you can't go to see them. But for the most part, September 3rd through April 30th, that's the recruiting period. And so we've talked so much about these upcoming visits. You know the dates. We've gone through all of them. I'm not going to revisit all the upcoming visit dates. But just remember, September 3rd, Calipari and his staff are going to be able to hit the road. They're going to be able to do in-home visits, on-campus, on-site visits with these players, their high schools or whatever. And so it's not just that you're waiting on guys you've already got scheduled visits, and then the ones who you've scheduled and hasn't gone public yet, like Abdou Toure. It's not just that you're waiting on them. Calipari and the staff, they're going to go out and see all these players. They're going to make it a point. And so we're going to talk more and more about that as we get closer to September 3rd. We're real close to it, right? We got another week to go, but I just want to remind everybody to think about that. It's not just about who you're waiting on to get in, but who you're going to pursue, go out and be aggressive, proactive, and make sure they know that you still want them. Some of this will be slightly evaluation stuff on guys you got in on late. You're going to go check some of these guys out. So we're going to go back through all the names and run through some of the areas of the country where Calipari is going to crisscross the map, man. The Continental 48, he's going to be on the East Coast, he's going to be on the West Coast, and parts in between. We'll run down all of that and talk about more of it specifically later. I know I already said that, but I like to repeat myself. All right, let's jump into some more recruiting tidbits. Anthony Spratt, class of 2028, got that hog offer a couple of weeks ago. And we've talked about him since that point in time because we've interviewed him. He's been on the record about it. I've brought up in one of the segments that I had a source that spoke with one of the higher ups at Team USA Junior National Basketball that was comparing him to one-year Duke star and NBA All-Pro Jason Tatum. Spratt, 6'6" wing, so size-wise, not out of the realm of possibility there, making that comparison. But we also mentioned not only to get the Calipari offer, but at the end of Peach Jam, there were coaches like John Shire at Duke and Bruce Pearl at Auburn who were courtside to watch him play with the 15U on the Nike Nike E15 level, not the EYBL, not E16, but E15. And he's in that Brad Bill Elite program. But we mentioned John Shire and Bruce Pearl being courtside to watch him. And then you get the comparison to a Duke guy, which doesn't mean that's a coincidence, but the thing is the Duke theme keeps coming up. And so we talked about the fact that he was going to take part in the prestigious CP3 Rising Stars Camp in North Carolina. That's an annual deal this time of year. It's the top freshman and sophomore high school players in the country. So he was invited in that. That's a big deal. But when you go out to North Carolina to take part in that, they have a day. And he talked about an interview that I had, that video interview that I had up on my X account and over at HogvilleNET, that they were going to get to do some unofficial visits. Well, one of the ones he did was Duke, and they're a photo sent to me, and I put it out on Twitter. I put it out on X of him with John Shire at Duke a few days ago. So look, high majors, the Blue Bloods, they're going to be after him. Calipari got a head start. We talked about that for a while, that was coming. And you can only get that information here. That's important to know because these in-state kids, we talk about all the time how slept on they are, but when Calipari extends a scholarship offer and he identifies the in-state kids that can help him win, everybody else is paying attention. So it's important that we walk through the stages of this as they happen in real time, because you're thinking, well, it's class of 2028. He's not even a sophomore. He hadn't played his sophomore season in high school. No, but he's already a coveted guy, and he's an in-state guy. And I know how the fan base in this state feel about in-state guys. If they're worthy, you better get them. Calipari's 2 for 2 so far. He's 2 for 2. Isaiah Seeley, J.J. Andrews. Hey, perfect segue, J.J. Andrews. What a week it's been for J.J. Andrews. He keeps having week after week where we're talking about him because honestly, the guy just never stops playing, and he wills. He's not perfect in the win and loss record with his teams, but man, he's one of the reasons if you're winning, that you're winning. He started the week off with a good performance at the Slam Summer Classic a week ago today, last Monday, in Rucker Park, the most famous outdoor court in the world. You know the history, and if you don't, just remember names like Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Dr. J. Just for starters, but a good performance and a win in the Slam Summer Classic on Monday. Transition through the week, he's off to Los Angeles, so from right to left coast, flying over Arkansas and waving at all of us. He goes out to LA for the Nike, what used to be called the Skills Academy. Now they just call it the Academy. Again, it's an elite camp, and you transition that into playing in the Mamba League Invitational, which is an outdoor court in downtown LA. I watched all of those games on I think I watched them on YouTube Live. I did. That's where I watched them. But he last night, championship game, he did not win. So this time he didn't win, but it wasn't for lack of him being what I thought was the best defender. Now, in these all-star games are like, defense, are you really paying attention to that? Yes, I am. Who are the guys stepping up trying to defend? Last night, 13 points. He was 5 of 10 from the field, 3 of 3 at the foul line, 7 or 8 rebounds. I had him with 7. He might have had 8. There was an offensive board where I didn't think he quite had a controlled tip back to the basket. It was more of a deflection off his hand, but it went and hit the backboard. So if he was credited with that as a rebound, which is possible, he had 8 rebounds, a couple of steals that I saw. But doing JJ things, he very unselfish player offensively. In fact, they had 3 players on their team. The whole reason they lost, they had 3 guys that just decided they were going to play one-on-one the entire game and take every shot. The other team did a better job of sharing it and doing things. But defensively, he was guarding Christian Collins, who was named the MVP of the game. So the team that won, you're like, well, how can you laud his defense when he lost? Let me tell you how I can, because Christian Collins didn't score when JJ was on him. I don't think he had a bucket when JJ was guarding him. I need to go back and rewatch it because I'm going to do that. I won't watch it just once. I'll watch it twice. But I'll correct the record if I'm wrong. But I don't think he scored when JJ was on him. In fact, he tried to size JJ up on the perimeter. Christian Collins, who Arkansas recruited for a while, top 5 rated 5-star left coast guy, and when JJ was on him, it was a donut, babe, not a zilch. And he couldn't really drive by him. He had to get off the ball, pass it to somebody. And he was trying to cross him up and figure out a way to do it. He didn't have any success. JJ had several deflections, did a good job defensively. In a game like that, you're like, what value is there really in that? Because nobody really is, but he was. And so to me, if you're going to step on the court, I don't care what scenario it is, go out there and defend. And he's not the kind of guy that's going to try to take somebody's legs out and defend, stop a dunk in a showcase game. He's not that guy. I'm just saying he's playing real defense, and that was good to see. J.J. Andrews, stat line's fine. The previous game in the semifinals, I think he had 11 points, but that was the game where his big highlights that I really liked, that I tweeted out on social media. There was a windmill dunk in transition after he got a steal. Prior to that, he went from the left wing, drove in, and the defenders just kind of couldn't deal with him. He dunked on that play. He had another dunk in transition that was really nice off a long bounce pass from Tyron Stokes. Stokes, well, by the way, was the MVP of the Slam Summer Classic. Christian Collins, This will be interesting. I talked about coaches going back on the road. Arkansas is still recruiting Brandon McCoy, who also played in this event this weekend. He did not play last night, but the top 10, top 5 rated 5-star guard, McCoy and Collins are teammates at St. John Bosco in Los Angeles, as is Taj Ariza. They're all on the same team. Another guy that's kind of slid a little bit in the rankings, didn't play in July on the circuit, but still, a really good player, top 25-ish kind of guy, has been ranked in the top 10. They all play at St. John Bosco, and that'll be one of the stops. If it's not one of the stops Calipari makes, it tells me that he's out on McCoy all of a sudden. But maybe there's something that can be rekindled with Christian Collins. I don't know. That's been going backwards in recruiting in terms of Arkansas and Collins. We've talked about that. It's gotten quiet. Could that ramp back up? But Collins did some good things in this game. He is a really good rebounder, and he knocked down his shots, mid-range shots. I think he hit a 3. Stuff we were seeing early in the spring, and he kind of took a step or so back in July. But he's one of those rebounders where it's just kind of natural for him. He's one of those want to kind of rebounders. He's got a nose for where the ball's going. He tracks it well. He's long, athletic, did some good things. But, with the production he had, if you watch that game when JJ was on him, he couldn't get going. And I don't know that he made his shot. I don't think he did when JJ was guarding him. I already said that, didn't I? All right, so let's go back through it. Other guys, Arafan Diane is going to visit Arkansas. Teammates with JJ last night in the Mamba League Invitational. Through the whole event, but last night in the finals, he started. He didn't play a whole lot. He was kind of in and out. It was a game where it was so up and down. He moves well for a 7-footer. He had some good plays late. Of course, Tyron Stokes taking every shot that he could get his hands on. He made some decent passes. You had Cole Clower that was in this event, didn't play in the championship last night. CJ Rosser, we've talked a lot about him, class of 2027, 6'9", out of Rocky Mount, North Carolina, arguably the number 1 player in class of 2027. He did play last night on the same team as Christian Collins, or excuse me, he was in the title game. Cole Clower had a nice dunk going baseline that I tweeted out a couple of days ago from this very event. We mentioned Brandon McCoy. So you had, and then Baba Aladotin was also in this event, recently reclassed from 27 to 26. Arkansas is prioritizing him. Calipari spent a lot of time on it, and they're working to finalize a visit date. So those are some of the names you've already heard. And I think Cal and the staff will be out to see all those guys and plenty more. We're going to talk a lot more about that in the days to come. All right, I went way over what I wanted to do for basketball today. I have plans to talk football. Let's just do it quickly because it's Alabama A&M, and I will be doing a preview show later in the week, probably on Thursday, and that'll probably be the day I do preview shows. Right now, the thought process is instead of doing a live show immediately following the games, I may do a recap and a revisit and a follow-up the day after, get a good night's sleep on it, really contemplate everything I saw, and then we'll do a Sunday show, something like that. We're still figuring out what we're doing. We're also endeavoring some stuff to really improve the quality of our shows. That's something else that I don't know how soon something like that might happen. I've been told to be patient. Maybe there'll be some studio access, other things, but forever, and I've been begging for this, I want the ability to show graphics. I want the ability to break down video. All these things that are right in my wheelhouse that I just can't do. I have to describe it verbally. The content to me matters, but that helps your content, and quality of production certainly matters too. That's not lost on me. So we're working on those things. I don't want to overpromise something when I'm told to be patient. It may be a while. So hopefully we'll get some of this stuff at least done before basketball season, but I'd love it for football season as well. But let's talk a little football. I mentioned it early. Stay healthy. Play everybody. You need, you're going to win. You're going to beat Alabama A&M. All right. You're going to be 1-0. You're going to be undefeated still. You're undefeated right now. You're going to be undefeated after Saturday. You get a home game. It's an opportunity to, you're going to get the dub, but what else are you really doing to feel good about yourself? Because the dub is expected. Offensive execution, that's what happened last year. No turnovers. So much of what Arkansas did last year were unforced turnovers. When we mentioned that and penalties and some other things, but those things stood out to me in a season where you won 6 regular season games and could have been better than that. Should have been better than that. Maybe should have been a 9-win team again. Or I guess technically Pittman's regular season team that won 9 games was an 8-win regular season. They won their bowl game over Penn State, the Outback Bowl. So you left some on the field, so a lot of those were unforced turnovers. It wasn't about the quality of the opponent. It was about the mistakes, but they started right. No turnovers against UAPB, Arkansas Pine Bluff in week 1 in Little Rock. You need a game like that. You need to score on every drive while your best units are out there. And then you should continue that when you bring in the backups until you stop trying to score. So, is that too much to ask? I don't know. I mean, that's the goal. And it's a Bobby Petrino offense, despite all the problems last year, a top 10 ranked offense when you looked at yards per game in college football. I mean, that's the standard that you expect with that offense and against this kind of opponent. Certainly, you don't want drop-offs. So you want to execute offensively and do a lot of damage there. I don't care who the opponent is. Defensively, you must dominate. You must dominate. And Arkansas, again, this time last year, did that. They got to dominate. Special teams, you just got to win everything. You got to win everything. You got to win the kick game. You got to win the punt game. You got to win the return games. All of those things. You got to win the field position based off your special teams. Everything Arkansas should win all 3 parts of the game, all 3. And so I think they will, but it's just, that's what we're paying attention to. You need to you've got to take care of the things that are in your control. And, coming out of week 1, you want to feel like you're not going to be perfect, but you want to feel like that was the goal and that you went out and you played like you really wanted to be, because you're not going to be, but you want to play like people look at that and go, wow, they're taking the assignment serious. They don't care. They're not disrespecting the opponent, but they're playing like they're supposed to. Offense, we've talked a little offense already in the 2 segments we did. Guys like Taylon Green, Mike Washington Jr., the old man in the receiving corps, Monty Harrison. We've talked about these guys so far in those scrimmages. Once 2 or 3 weeks of summer/fall camp leading up to the season, they were the playmakers on offense. Some other guys too, but you expect that those are 3 guys that we're going to hear their names Saturday. And if we don't, maybe someone else stepped up, and it's not bad on them, but someone else doing good. Defensively, we haven't talked as much about. We know Cam Ball, Quincy Rhodes, those are your anchors on that defensive line. You heard Phillip Lee has been talked about, and his edge pass rushing, better late than never, a veteran guy, what a redshirt senior, and an in-state guy at that. I think out of Jacksonville. You've got Okie, who's been out and may miss a game or 2. So you got a lot of newcomers that are trying to answer and fill in some of the blanks on that defensive line. Outside of Rose and Ball, I think they've done it. They've assembled enough there. Again, we're looking ahead a little bit beyond just this one game. They've assembled enough there to have hope that the defensive line is not going to be a liability, but may have actually some strengths and can do some good things. The linebacker core, you come into it thinking that, guys like Sorey has been dealing with a hamstring injury, and just what he's meant, getting some continuity back, some consistency back. These aren't newcomers when you talk about him. Stephen Dix Jr. And then when you talk about Bradley Shaw, when you looking at just those 3 and then what they're saying lately, Travis Williams on Monday really talking about throwing Trent Whalen's name in there. And that was expected, but these are the guys that you're looking to on that second line of the defense. Arkansas has plenty of positives on the defense side. I think last year the run defense, and you're talking about the front, and you're talking about those linebackers, the run defense was strong at times. Overall, fairly consistent. It was the secondary and the yardage it gave up. It was not very good as a secondary and giving up the big plays. So there's where we get into guys like Larry Worth. We mentioned briefly in one of the previous segments. Returning Julian Neal, who Otis Kirk, our lead football guy, thinks is going to be a star. Well, that's what a lot of people think. Guys like Mitchell, Singleton, Bridges, some of these names, Wooden, Smalls. I mean, you got a lot of size. You got a lot of speed in the receiver corps. You got in size there, but you got but a lot of question marks. Well, you got a lot of question marks here too. I think on the defensive line and in the secondary, even though a lot of it looks good, you brought in some good stuff. Until it rubber meets the road, you're not really sure. And so, Arkansas is going to be 1-0. We're going to do a pregame again. I don't know how much time we're going to spend on the opponent. We will a little bit just out of respect. And we'll go a little deeper on some stuff that I'd like to see. We'll get hopefully we can get Otis Kirk, if he's not on the show, to give us some, some 5 keys that he sees. Again, 5 keys to beat Alabama A&M. It's more about 5 keys that you just want to see, or maybe moving forward and you start with Alabama A&M and you springboard from there. We know how it is. You can't look at a game like that and then predict what you're going to do the next week. Arkansas last year went on the road and played Oklahoma State, a team that looked like would be maybe a worthy opponent. Arkansas should have won that game, and then we learned that Oklahoma State wasn't very good. But at the same time, Arkansas should have won that game. Arkansas State in week 2 here in the 501 at War Memorial, maybe the last game ever there. That'll be a shame for me. I'm a 501 guy. I lived in Northwest Arkansas for 8 years. I prefer it in Central Arkansas. Nothing wrong with the Hill, but I like it better here. A lot of tradition for decades in basketball, football here. 1 game a year, is that too much to ask to continue that? I don't know. There's always been a debate about that. People falling different on that. I'm not going to just disrespect other opinions. Personally, I like it. But Arkansas State, that's going to be their Super Bowl. You don't want to go out if that is your last game at War Memorial Stadium with an L. And that's the first thing that Arkansas State's thinking about when they're putting their team together, when everything they did in the preseason is aiming at that game. Believe that. So we'll have plenty to talk about before we get into what we consider the scary part of the football schedule. It might start getting scary in week 2, just based on, don't ever overlook that team, and especially in state. This is something that people have talked about forever. Now it's going to happen. All right, 36 minutes in. I wanted to give 15 minutes to football. I just didn't do it. But again, we'll talk football again later this week and do a pregame, and then there'll be a follow-up show, I think, on Sunday after they've played Saturday. The plan is I will be at Razorback Stadium to help Otis and our team over at HogvilleNET with the football coverage. I do it anyway. I write a sidebar for every game, but I typically do it after watching it on the big screen here in Mikasa. I did again go to the Little Rock game last year. I've covered the Razorbacks of football in the past, but I'm ramping it up. So I'll be at Reynolds Razorback Stadium more and more. The plan is throughout the season. And then we'll see when we have conflicts with basketball and stuff I'm doing for that, how we deal with that as the season moves into late October, early November. Thank you everyone for being here. If something major breaks today, like a commitment or something crazy, we're going to come back on live. If not, probably be tomorrow. Appreciate all of you. Thanks for being here. Be great in all your endeavors. See you soon.